Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it really does give me great pride, great pleasure to introduce you to round 24 of the National Rugby League. The Market Watch podcast is proudly brought to you by topsport.com.au. You may hear in my voice a little dancing along because I'm so looking forward to the next hour or so with our regular usual suspects. I'm talking about the number one seed up there at Top Sport, Tristan Merlehan. I'm talking about our man Gerard Condon from Reading the Play, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you both to the podcast today. How are we, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm not as good as you, Jimmy. You've been breaking the world record for the amount of gifts sent in a group chat over the last couple of days. I had my darling daughter's 4th birthday party on Sunday, and my phone just kept buzzing. We had the music coming out of my phone for her, and every time there was a try in the Titans Dragons game, there was a buzz, and the music would stop. I think they thought they were playing Pass the Parcel or whatever was happening, and it was happening very, very frequently. But no, the Dragons were too good for my Titans, and yes, you certainly warrant being a very happy camper after the results of the weekend.
Well, what was even more entertaining when all those messages were coming through, Tristan, was Jimmy went the early crow, and all of a sudden the Titans went bang, bang with 2 tries. And we're going, hang on.
And then Francis Molo got sent off.
Yes. And not even the Titans could close that out against 12 men. The Dragons then go bang, bang with 2 tries. And I was just hoping that we'd got him at the early crow, but no, not to say so. Jimmy, I think, what was it? You picked up one more on the lunch bet calendar on the weekend?
Oh, well, Gerard, what a great segue into having a look at that. Just remember, if you are enjoying the podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. Spotify, Apple, Whooshka, YouTube, we're all over that place. So, firstly, before we get to the lunches, my bets last week were Storm at the line and Storm 13 plus. Did that very comfortably. That was a staking plan of around.
Jimmy, can I just add here? I got an absolute gobful from the bookkeeper this morning about this J. Smith stake plan. Took 30 minutes to work out. Okay, he's got X for this and Y for that, and he got $128. If he had just 100 on it, we would have ended up with about the same.
Oh no. Well, it proved that we actually generated more monies than that, Gerard. So Tristan will attest to that. And you went all up the Cows and the Roosters, both of them 13 plus. Did that very comfortably as well. Plus, of course, 50 from each of you gentlemen, which, as I say, gives me great pleasure. But what gives me even greater pleasure is you're going to give us a charity bank balance update for Pass It On Clothing, Tristan.
Yeah, and you've forgotten about the real tough sweat I had over my bet, which was the Roosters 30 plus as well, which saluted. And that one got a bit more cash into the kitty as well. So 12,460. Well, I think we had a clean sweep on the footy. All 3 of us were successful with our wagers there. And I did notice that the balance is 12,460 we've got in the prize pool now. So ticking along very nicely. And I noticed then when Gerard touched on the moments in that Titans Dragons game where he said we were hoping that that Jimmy would come crashing back to earth with the early crows. So I think that's probably opportune to join both Gerard and my scores in the lunch bet tally. So 13 plus 5 takes us to 18 against Jimmy for 17.
I think it's absolutely timely, Tristan. Yes, I agree. And yes, you're right. And I think between both of us last week, we did mention that we were pretty confident that the podcast bets you were going to put up for the punters out there who want to follow the podcast and jump into Top Sport and have a bet, we were reasonably confident it might have been the right week. And weeks of all, it's 22 years since there's been a whitewash weekend like last weekend in the NRL, Jimmy. What do we make of that?
Circumstantial, I reckon. Circumstantial. It was just one of those situations. So everyone, because of the magnitude of the Tigers' scoreline, that everyone wanted to talk about that. But the Broncos loss, that's the one that was like, hang on, that's a top 8 side at home with so much to play for. We know, and you told us all last week about the great record that Melbourne has, but not by 60 points to 12. That became embarrassing very quickly for the Brisbane Broncos.
Well, I think 7 of the 8 games were absolute blowouts, Jimmy, and it was rather ironic that mid last week there was an article which I'm sure was dusted up with a little bit of a rosy plant coming from head office about how all of a sudden head office were very confident that the game was starting to even out and we weren't going to see these blowout scores. And lo and behold, we go into the weekend, 7 out of 8 were blowouts, and it's 22 years since we've seen results like that.
No, 6 of the 8, because the first game was a brilliant one, the Panthers and the Rabbits, and the last game was very tight, the Knights and the Raiders. But in between, no, it didn't make for great viewing. So just to look at just a change in the table, I'm now on top at +3, Gerard there at +2, and look all the way back there. There's Tristan.
Jimmy, I thought we moved beyond this a couple of minutes ago, but anyway, on a very serious note, though, I do question expansion and how rapidly we look to expand, and also the number of teams in Sydney. And I think it brings into question for mine one of my key bugbears for a number of years, and that is the level and quality of reserve grade behind the Sydney teams. I think the Q Cup has been a very good feeder for the last probably 8 years into the NRL. I question about the depth of the New South Wales Cup and that being the reserve grade. It's got stronger through the last 3 years, but I still think it's a level below. And the bottom half of the table now, you can just rule a line through the bottom 6 or 7 teams, and it's been like that since round 1. I mean, my original ratings at the start of this season and the start of last season had teams in that bottom 4 or 5 that were just never going to compete. As now the season unfolds, I just wonder what the answer is that the 17 teams next year, if we go to 18 the following year or the year after, I just think we end up with too many teams and we're diluting the quality of the product of what we have.
I'm going to disagree wholeheartedly with you. And the reason I'll do that is this, that the players can be brought up to speed. I think there is talent enough. And the other part of that is, what if there's not enough talent? Well, you still can get competitive games because the talent that is there is evenly distributed. I think the greater issue is the administration of the football clubs. I agree. The growth and development of junior pathways and the club as an entity is far more influential on what the NRL side looks like in 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the track. So have a look at, well, the West Tigers are an absolute basket case.
Correct.
Absolute basket case. I think the St. George Illawarra Dragons are something similar, given their nursery of juniors that they haven't been able to bring through or won't bring through. I reckon the Bulldogs have been that until the arrival of Phil Gould, right? And then now all of a sudden there's a plan in place about how they go about developing that. The Warriors, I'll excuse because of COVID and the existing circumstances around that, but they have had a history of not getting it right for a long period of time. The Newcastle Knights, they are all over the shop. That, this strong junior league, they should own all of that North Coast area and out to the western area of great parts of New South Wales. They don't, and that's their own fault. So I don't think it's, we haven't got enough players. I think we haven't got enough administrators and people that know football that know how to do it right within organisations.
I think it's a bit of both, Jimmy. I'm still not convinced, as you are, that we have enough depth. I also question the balance of some of the cap spend and issues, because I think there's still some good players playing in England that could be somewhere in this competition. And that comes back to your point about the right administration, recruitment and coaching. And yes, some of those clubs, and from the executive level down at the boardroom to the CEO and their general management of football, just leaves many, many questions.
Hey, let's get into some ratings. Before we do that, we've got to tell people, I think they know now, but unfortunately, if you were planning to go on Friday, September 9th, it's sold out at Dick's Hotel at Balmain. For Pass It On Clothing, we've got the 2-course lunch, the 3-hour bar, James Graham, special guest speakers. We're going to be there and be very excited to be amongst the listeners. First Friday of the NRL finals, so can't wait for that. Unfortunately, you'll have to do something next year. We might do something around Magic Round and then make that an annual event there at Dick's Hotel. But we are looking forward to that. Tristan, give us an updated Premiership Market on the back of that blowout week of round 23.
Yeah, it was certainly a different week, and we've got Penrith that are now very firm favourites. They are, and I don't foresee them changing in price until the finals roll around, regardless of what happens over the next fortnight. They're $2.20. However, I do see a lot of jockeying for positions with the rest of the teams in contention here. The Storm have firmed up significantly. They've gone from, I think they were as high as fourth favourite a fortnight ago. They're into $4.40, a clear second pick. They look like they've found their mojo, but it depends on, I think this weekend against the Roosters is really going to put a line in the sand where both of these sides sit, because was it a case of the Broncos were that bad or the Storm were that good? Then you've got the Sharkies at $8.50. They're just ticking along under the radar. If they can run second, it puts them in a massive advantageous spot to avoid Penrith until potentially the grand final. The Cowboys $9.50. They're slowly starting to slip away. They've got another important game this weekend against the Bunnies. The Roosters 10, the Bunnies 13, the Eels at 16, and then just to show how far the Broncos have fallen, they're at $51, only slightly in front of the Raiders at $126.
Well, Jimmy, I've worked through some numbers over the last couple of weeks. I update my ratings every Monday, Tuesday. I mean, where I am this week, I have the Panthers clear outright. Now, I have them a 7-point rating gap to the next team behind them, and I have 5 teams very close side by side. I'll get to them in a moment. I have not backed long-term the Panthers because I just thought that they were always well in the market, and B, I still have a hold of concern about a team going back-to-back. There's no doubt that they're the benchmark. They're the team to beat. I've got no knock that they can't do it. I just didn't want to get involved if I had to bet longer term. So my longer-term plays, which we've mentioned on the podcast over recent weeks, the Roosters, the Cowboys, the Rabbitohs and the Broncos. I left the Storm out. I'm still happy to be against the Storm. They may prove me wrong. I'm just not sure that they can hold all of that through to the end of the season. Time will tell. So I've got the Panthers on top, let's say 7 rating points in front of the next 5, which in order, I now have the Roosters. The Roosters have gone from probably 4th or 5th on the list up to 2nd. Then the Cowboys, then the Storm, then the Rabbitohs, then the Sharks. I personally think we draw a line under the Storm. I don't think the Rabbits, the Sharks, the Eels, or the Broncos, or whoever makes up the bottom of the 8 will end up being a contender. And I know that that flies against the Sharks, who will end up in a nice spot in 2nd. We would expect now the way the draw unfolds and the likelihood that they could win game 1 and have a week off. I'm happy to be against them as well. So the standouts to go against them would be the Roosters as the key play, the Rabbits, the dark horse, certainly the Storm are there, the Cowboys are there. I've had no money on the Storm.
Yeah, wow, interesting. And be interesting too on the back of those performances and that shortening that we've just heard about as well. All right, so that's a wider term play. Let's get into the games of round 24. The first one is so important. The Broncos up against the Eels. So explain to me this one, Tristan. Selwyn Cobbo, who's been out for an extended period, comes back for 3 games, is being rested because of fatigue. Jordan Pereira comes in. Ryan James out with a broken finger. Reece Kennedy out. Keenan Palacia and Zach Hosking. He is in the side. For the Eels, no changes. Makahesi Makatoa and Jake Arthur added to the bench in place of Bryce Cartwright and Ofahiki Ogden. Gee, if I'm a Broncos fan, I'm concerned about that news around Selwyn Cobbo.
Or maybe they're just going well enough after last week's performance to put one of their Origin stars on the bench. But no, I'm perplexed by the decision. Whether something else is at play there, I'm not sure. But the Broncos are $2.25. The Eels are $1.65, and the line is 3.5. Now, as we'll get deeper into the card here, there's been many one-way goes already this round. This is certainly not one of the case. We've laid both sides very heavily at the minus and at the plus. We haven't had to move the line, but there's been plenty of action so far. So what that indicates is there's two varying degrees of difference of opinion in this match. And at the moment, we're 3.5 at the 180 and we're $2 about the minus. 48.5, the totals have shifted upwards a point already there. Despite this game having everything on the line, there would indicate that there's going to be lots of points in this match. This game is crucial for the top 8 as well. Both of these sides have been in the top 8 very comfortably all season, but whoever loses this week, they're going to have a lot of pressure on them next weekend, because unlike the Roosters and the Rabbitohs, who are in a similar sort of position, their for and against isn't that good against the Raiders. And let's not forget that the Raiders play the Tigers in the last game of the season next week. So they're going to know exactly what they're hunting down if one of these sides slip up. So it's a fascinating game. Whoever loses this is going to be under enormous pressure.
If we go back 5 weeks ago, we never would have expected, when these two teams met and the Broncos went to Sydney, I think it was a Friday night game at Parramatta, and absolutely dusted up the Eels. And we then expected that the Broncos were a likely top 4 contender, positive, enthusiastic play, shifting the football. Well, in a matter of those weeks, they've now gone not only to 8th, but as Tristan just touched on, they've got a 21-point differential. They keep falling as they are in free fall at the moment. They're in desperate trouble, especially if they lose again this weekend. And Jimmy, we touched on radio today that the Dogs have been barking for 4 or 5 weeks off the back of these poor results for the Broncos, that Kevin Walters went very hard on them in the pre-season. He wanted a really strong early start. He was up for wanting an extension. He was up for wanting to prove a point that he could coach. And whether they've actually just gone too hard too early and they're now running out of any energy at the end of the season when it's important may well be a very valid point of discussion. I mean, 60, 34, 32 leaking in their last 3 of their last 4 games. I actually have a hunch that somewhere in there, there's a little bit of redemption this weekend, and back at home, they've a point to prove. The Eels, tricky to catch, a soft win last week against the Bulldogs. I think the Bulldogs have laid down. The week before, South's just in second gear, went through the motions, picked up a 26-0 point win. Going up to Brisbane, Suncorp's actually been a friend to the Eels. It hasn't been a friend to the Broncos of recent times. I'm with the Eels just. I do have a little bit of a hunch that maybe the Broncos have got something to prove this week.
Gee, I've got the opposite hunch to you on that one. I'm really concerned about the Broncos. Actually, not that concerned, but anyway. And that is that they lose this one poorly, and then they lose against the Dragons. That's it. They're out. If they win against the Dragons then you can still get the Canberra Raiders. Their for and against is not that bad. That, as you say, they could have that big win against the West Tigers at Leichhardt. I don't think that's going to happen, but they're in danger here, Broncos. That was round 19. It was a Thursday night game. We called that one, and they absolutely blew them away, 36 points to 14. They are a mile away from that.
Yep.
The absence of Carrigan is one thing, but it can't be everything. Like, it can't be the only thing that is. They've got so many representative players there that haven't been playing well, and they almost went to the point of embarrassment last week. We talked about that semi-final loss, or the infamous loss to the Parramatta Eels a few years ago under Anthony Seibold. Well, that was something similar on Friday against the Melbourne Storm, who just did it with ease. The Eels is Mitch Moses back, so fifth tackle option's really good. I'm so bullish about them going up there, and I know the Eels are consistently inconsistent, but I think I love the -3.5, the Eels in that one. Nothing, Gerard?
Good luck to you, Jimmy. I hope you enjoy it.
No, come on. Don't let courage. What do they say? Don't let fear hold you back.
No. Jimmy, I just could not touch the Broncos off the back of where their form is. I'm a hunch that they have a crack. I actually do think there's points in the game. These two will leak points. They will score points, and Suncorp is a home for points and overs. That's my only play on the game.
All right, let's have a look at the Friday night. Panthers at home to the Warriors. Jerome Luai is back a week ahead of schedule. James Fisher-Harris back from suspension. So Jamin Salmon out. Matt Eisenhuth goes to the bench for the Warriors. Ewan Aitken is out of the game for personal reasons. Chanel Harris-Tavita, he's only got a couple of weeks and then he can go travelling and riding. He's back from the knee injury. He's at 5'8" for Dejanasi. Josh Curran into the second row in place of Jack Murchie. What's the line on this one, Tristan?
I walked into the office on Monday morning and I said to the boys, we cannot have a repeat of the absolute disaster we had on Saturday night when all three of these dead rubbers were blowouts. All five of the AFL minuses covered and punters got multi after multi, and we were left in a very, we're in the fetal position on Saturday night. So I said, we've got to make sure that we open these games above the market and let's try to get a bit of early action on the plus. We opened at 1.5 points above the market, and within 10 minutes, the market had passed us by and we were laying the Panthers. It was unbelievable what happened there on Monday. We opened the market at 22.5 when the rest of the market was at 20.5. Within 10 minutes, we were laying that minus, and it just kept coming and coming and coming and got all the way up to 30.5. And then at 30.5, we started to lay the plus. And for a real nervous while, I said, oh no, what if Penrith rest a few of these players? And then fortunately, as you say, Jerome Luai, James Fisher-Harris is back. This is a game where I genuinely don't know where to price this, because if Penrith turn up and they play all their players and they play for 80 minutes, they could put a similar score on the Warriors like the Roosters did to the Tigers if the Warriors put a similar effort in. The Warriors aim up like they have at home, maybe they can keep it tight, and maybe Penrith don't play all their players. It's just such a tricky game. It's 29.5 the line at the moment, 185 the minus, 195 the plus, 51.5. This has seen the over and under go up 2 points as well on the back of all those high-scoring games we saw last weekend. It's been a very interesting week to price this weekend.
It leads me in to say I have not ever seen market moves in the 15 years that I would keep notes and bet the way that I do on a Monday and Tuesday in an NRL round as I have with this week. It is staggering. I mean, firstly, we've got two games. This is one where the Panthers, as you touched on, Tristan, we saw a 10-point move at the line during the course of probably 3 hours on Monday. I've never, ever seen that before. And now, lo and behold, the next day, the Panthers named that Luai and Fisher-Harris are back. Now, that's somebody new, and that probably had a little bit of an influence, but not 10 points. And then the other one was the Sharks that went from 13.5 out to 22.5 as it is now. But also we had another 3 games where the markets have moved and the total points have just moved dramatically. It's a combination of a lot of serious punters thinking that, the bottom teams had just given up for the end of the season. It's a splashback to what happened last weekend. It's the bookmakers reacting and saying, we'll take some, but we're just going to keep moving the point. This is an obvious one. I don't think the game's 29.5, but I'm not going to be against the Panthers. I think the Warriors, as I said last week, against the Cowboys were good things up in North Queensland. They go home, travel back to Australia. That's now 11 losses in a row when they come to Australia. They've got a distant travel. Penrith Park's one of the most toughest places that you want to play. Penrith win. I think Cleary is just managing his list perfectly. I would have rested Liam Martin last week. Lo and behold, he comes out and absolutely kills them in the second half. Coruscant is just outstanding, yet he left him off for the first 17 minutes, then brings him on, and the guy just goes out and absolutely kills them. He's just tapering their run so well. If they want to win by 30, they could. I can't have the line. I don't want to touch the game. I'm not sure it gets the 51 points, but the Panthers certainly win.
Yeah, it was interesting, that move. Coruscant not coming on until after, that 17-minute mark. He played superbly again. And Mitch Kenny just doesn't have that creative part of his game. He's a good player. He's a very solid first grader, but he just doesn't have that creative part. Sean O'Sullivan will be much better with Jerome Luai by his side. I thought Salmon, he had that good game against the Canberra Raiders, and then from that point, lots of reasons associated with that. He didn't play so well. There were opportunities, I think, in that game against Panthers that were exploited by the Rabbitohs that would have made a lot of coaches of other these top sides say, oh, okay, we can see something here. They made so many breaks down their left-hand side. Probably weren't able to capitalise on them as much as they could have. But I don't think the Warriors are going to exploit that at Penrith. It really is a case of, for the Warriors, end of season can't come quick enough. I think I'm right in saying Reece Walsh had one run for 4 metres or something in the first half of last week. And it's like, oh, that's like, he's a fine young player, but that's sort of symptomatic of what's happening in the squad. I'll take them on. I'll go the minus 29.5 and be cheering on your Penrith Panthers, Tristan. All right, let's get to this absolutely outstanding game on Friday night. It's down there at Amy Park. It's the Storm up against the Roosters. Marion Seve is back into the reserves. He's coming back from the hamstring injury. Tyron Wishart, he's out because of the ankle injury, so he won't play. Seve, we think, will go in for young Tonamapea if he is available. For the Roosters, so Siwa Tokiaho, from what I understand, definite. Lindsay Collins, maybe, with that concussion, but it's just a really, really strong side that the Roosters are taking down to Melbourne, and they'll need it. What's the market saying, Tristan?
I haven't been as excited for a regular season game for a long, long, long time, because I feel like we've had the two standouts in the comp for the last couple of years, and that's been Penrith and Melbourne. But just the way it's fallen, most of the times they've played each other, we've had one side without their stars, or it's been a wet weather game, or there's been Origin impact, or these sort of things. And this game just looks an absolute beauty. Melbourne have bounced back at absolute top form, and the Roosters are just flying. They're going unbelievably well. The problem the Roosters got, though, if they lose this week to the Storm, they take on a Rabbitohs side who are also going really well, and they are a chance of missing the 8, despite winning however many they've won in a row, which just would be a travesty if the Raiders slipped in front of them. The market's $1.57 the Storm, $2.40 the Roosters, 4.5 the line, 180 the minus, $2 the plus. I tend to think the line's a little bit too big personally, just because I think it's close to a flip of the coin job. But if Melbourne turn up and they could blow them away, the Roosters could blow them away. I'm just excited for this game, and I just think it probably should be a little bit tighter.
I'm with you, Tristan. I think 4.5 is too big. I'm much closer to 2, maybe 1.5. I have the Roosters slightly higher than the Storm as a rating. If I factor in the teams in the ins and outs and changes and where we stand this week, which we've got 2 very good teams coming together. Storm get a slight advantage with home. I still have the Roosters in this up to their ears. He's just such a good coach. We've got 2 very good coaches here, but Trent Robinson has timed this like a Melbourne Cup preparation. They were slow out of their blocks early. It's taken some time. They've had some key injuries. Listen, would I have signed Matt Lodge? I said at the time, no, but the guy's just been outstanding in the last 3 weeks. He adds that big body that starts the game with Wira Hargraves. They now this week get Takiako back, possibly Collins. All of a sudden that changes what they do with their rotations. The way they're now playing Walker at 7 and Keary at 6, but on the sides and the way they combine. Then you got, the back 3 plus Manu was just absolute class. Who would have said that Nat Butcher would have scored 4 tries? I mean, it was like a walk in the park last week, wasn't it? I just think they're on the up. I just like what they're doing and the polish and punch to their game and that power in the middle. I've no knock on the Storm. I just don't know yet that they're at the same level where the Roosters are starting to be. That was a walk in the park last week against the Broncos, and it was just way too soft. Hughes and Munster, off the back of what's happening at 9 and 13 for the Storm is very good. But it's a tough record going down to Melbourne. They've lost 4 of their last 5. We know the Storm are very good at home. I'm with the Roosters, and I think there's points in the game. I think it's too low, 42.5. These 2 teams have got points and attack in them. They'll open each other up and find opportunity. I'm with the Roosters, and I think there's points.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that one game that they did win out of those 5 was a Latrell Mitchell field goal, remember? And it was in Golden Point. I think the scoreline 21-20 or something similar. So, the 4.5 is probably explained by Amy Park, right? That's probably the only thing. You play this game at a neutral venue and you probably are toss of the coin game. But it's such a great matchup. I just think the Roosters have more points of attack. So the challenge for Coach Robinson, nullify Munster. How do you nullify Munster? The other threat is Grant out of dummy half. The other threat is Nelson Asafa-Solomona now on an edge. Like, what? How long he's kept that quiet for about 6 seasons as Coach Bellamy, but put him out there out of necessity. Now the really interesting thing is, well, what's he do with Felice Kafusi? How does he manage that? You know, you've got a state of origin class player that potentially is not going to get too much game time on that edge. He might have to play in the middle. So that's their points of attack. The Roosters' points of attack, they're all over the place, aren't they? You know, you've got Tedesco, you've got Manu on the right, Kiri on the left, and with a straight hard running, he's not quite Boyd Cordon, but he's not far off it. Angus Crichton. You mentioned the punch through the middle, added to by Torquiaho. And I think Verrills has been a really, really good player for the Roosters and will be a loss, but has to be a loss because of Brandon Smith coming to the Cobb. Great setup. Great game. Can't wait for it. Plus 4.5 for me with the Roosters in this one. All right, let's go to the next match. It's the Saturday game, 3 o'clock. It's the Raiders against the Seagulls. Same 17 for the Raiders, who just got it done against the Knights. They had to come from behind for the Seagulls. Raymond Tuimalo Veiga is going to be named on the wing. He's in place of Alfred Smalley. He'll be making his NRL debut, so we wish him all the very best for that. Andrew Davey back into the second row. Ethan Bullimore to 18th man. And Tofafoa Sipley, he's going to start in the front row with Marty Tapau pushing back to the bench. Interesting to see how you price this one up, Tristan.
So we priced it at $1.21, the Raiders, $4.50 Manly. The line's gone from 12.5 out to 14.5 and 52.5 the total points. Now on paper, there's not 14.5 points between these sides. There's absolutely not. Manly look like they've turned it up for the season. Canberra need to win and win comfortably to try to erode that gap between both the Broncos and the Eels, where at the moment it's a 46-point gap against the Broncos and it's 89-point gap against the Eels. So whilst 89 seems a big number, if there was a blowout one way or the other on the Thursday night game and Canberra's got the Tigers to finish off, you never know after what we witnessed last weekend. But 14.5, we've just put the number where we think it's going to get some sort of action both ways. It's a really tricky game to price. And I think if Manly turn up and play at 100%, then the line's way too big. If they put in a similar effort to what they've done over the last fortnight, it's nowhere near enough. And that's going to be, it's just a tricky one. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it.
Yeah, the game's got absolute whiskers on it. And Tristan nails a point. The Eagles are absolute debacle at the moment. And there is absolutely no doubting for the last 4 weeks internally that joint has exploded. There is enormous internal issue in the playing squad with the coaching staff, the whole box and dice. It's just completely off the rails. Last week they leaked 40. The week before it was 44. The week before it was 36. The Roosters beat them 20-10. It should have been 40-10. They are in an absolute mess internally. They are not on the same page. 14.5 is not right, but you do not trust the Eagles to even turn up, let alone help your grandmother to cross the road this week. The Raiders, all the Raiders do at the moment is just enough to win. They do not put their foot down. They do not touch up teams. We saw that last week, down by 14, come home late to just beat the Knights. The week before, same against the Dragons. Led by 12, should have gone on and won easily, and they didn't. They're at home. They're a horrible position whenever they're a favourite. I think twice this year they won by 13 plus, and on neither occasion were warm favourites. Raiders win, that's enough. Watch the game, see the result. Maybe the Raiders get a late charge and get into the finals, and that's about the end of it.
I can't. This is so interesting. So the last game of the regular season, next week we'll talk about it. That is the Tigers at home to the Raiders. Here's a prediction. The Broncos lose this Thursday night. Then they beat the Dragons, but just. And so the Raiders have a big win against Manly this week. And so you're looking at a 20-point, maybe even less swing, and the Raiders don't get it done against the Tigers at Leichhardt. And so the Broncos fall into the 8. But They'll flog Manly. They will absolutely flog for all those reasons that you talked about, Jared. I know it's all fingers crossed and everything around what they do, but the fact that it's at home, like I watched that Newcastle versus Raiders game and thinking, like they're just so loose, turning over the football. The intent is not there, and it takes Papali'i, Tapani, and Whiten to get in there and go, guys, this is how we've got to win the game. I think they're more ruthless against Manly because Manly have just fallen apart. And then we'll find out the next week. But I'll take them on at the minus 14.5. I like the Raiders in that one to do it in front of the locals down there in Canberra, and mainly on the back of not what the Raiders are doing, but how the Seagulls have performed. All right, next game on a Saturday night, we've got Sharks and the Bulldogs. We think it's straightforward. It is going to be Andrew Fafita's final home game. If the Sharkies make the semi-finals with a home semi-final, they won't be playing at Shark Park. But so a good chance to say goodbye to Andrew Fafita, who has been an outstanding player for the club. CSC for Talakai is back. Connor Tracy still out after another concussion. Luke Thompson into the starting side. Josh Jackson to lock. And Tavita Pangai Jr. is out playing knock-on effect cup. Chris Patolo, the new man on the bench. This is another one of those games where the line was all over the place, Tristan.
Yeah, and the Bulldogs have put a couple of efforts in which caught me off guard because you touched at the top of the program about a couple of clubs being basket cases, and you mentioned that the Bulldogs have been a lot better since Gus has come on board, and just their effort against the Warriors, and I thought they'd be competitive against the Eels, who have been pretty ordinary, and they just got completely blown out of the water. So if they put in a similar effort against the Sharks, who can be ruthless like we saw last weekend, this could be another one that's a 40-point margin, and it's $1.06 the Sharkies, $9.50 the Bulldogs, and 22.5. Is there some element of bounce back? Surely there has to be some pride there after the inroads they've made and the effort they've shown under Mick Potter, but I just can't see it. And 22.5, if the Sharks put them to the sword, then who knows what number this could be. It's already moved 4 points, 8.5 out to 22.5, 49.5 to 50.5 the total points. So certainly one-way traffic for the Sharkies at this point.
Well, in the early look ahead line was 13.5. It just went north like you wouldn't believe. We're 9 points to 22.5. I mean, if you were lucky enough to be able to get on and at some decent coin at 13.5, well, you're absolutely sitting on the right position. But the Sharks win. I just think it's a matter of how far they put their foot down, and if they do, there's still a couple of key outs for them. They're probably playing their third string fullback, but I like what they're doing. I like the way that they shift the football. Absolutely went whack last week against the Eagles at Brookvale, which is a hoodoo ground for them. I think the Bulldogs have put the white flag up about 3 weeks ago. They're looking forward to Mad Monday. They're going through the motions. All of that punch that was there 4, 5, 6 weeks ago of trying to make a bit of a statement has now just completely evaporated. They're gone. Sharks win. 3 days ago, I thought 13 plus and an all up was probably a nice position where you got no price about that now. So maybe there's points in the game. I think at Shark Park there is, but Sharks win by how far?
Yeah, I agree. There's points in the game, but I think they're only coming from one team. So that's going to be your problem with that. If you have a look at, the try the Bulldogs scored last week, it was just a horrible one-on-one miss from Wanga Blake, and that's how they got there. So there wasn't anything too creative from them. Tend to agree with you a little bit about, hey, they're looking at next season, and you could make excuses for them in the Warriors, double travel and then short turnaround and all that sort of stuff. No excuses for the game against the Eels, where they'd had a big win a few weeks earlier, and so that was a concerning sight for the Bulldogs in that one. But the Sharks, this will be a celebration of the Sharks season at home. The last time they play at home, they've been excellent. They've been something that the Shire can be proud of. They're probably that team that's maximised their output based on their ability level. I think that probably is fair comment. And so that's a great credit to their coach, Craig Fitzgibbon. They'll win this really comfortably and they'll easily cover the 22.5. And Nico Hines and Matt Moylan will continue their great form going into the semi-finals. Okay, let's have a look at this game on Saturday night. Talk about important games. Here's another one. So the Rabbitohs, Tom Burgess, he's back after being out with a groin injury. So Hame Sele into the starting side. Daniel Saluka Fafita. Gee, that's a really good middle forward rotation, isn't it? I thought he was okay last week against the Panthers, Saluka Fafita. Jackson Paulo out after last week's game, and such an unfortunate situation for the young fella, not for the game, but for what transpired afterwards. Here's the interesting one. Tommy Dearden out. So Scotty Drinkwater immediately goes into the front line, becomes a spot player. Hamaso Tabuai Fido, the new fullback. Tommy Gilbert in on the bench. I just wonder if that is exactly the way that Coach Todd Payton plays this one. Tristan, over to you for a price.
Yeah, you're right. It's got to be some doubt over that. The Cowboys, they sort of steadied the ship somewhat there against the Warriors last weekend, but this is a test. They know if they want to be a threat in the Premiership, they have to be able to go down to Sydney and get some a result down there, and they certainly couldn't get it done against the Roosters. Now they take on the Rabbitohs, where it's $1.50 South Sydney, $2.60 the Cowboys. The line's gone from 5.5 to 6.5. That's on the back of Dearden out. 50.5 the total points. It's gone upwards massively, 47.5 up to 50 flat, 185 the overs.
It's a cracking game, this, isn't it? If we take in the implications of the ladder here, so we've got the Cowboys sitting on second, and they have a differential of 252. The Sharks sit in third with a differential of 171. Okay, so we've got about a 71 point differential in favour of the Cowboys. Cowboys next week have the Panthers at home, but we would expect that the Panthers probably rest players, as Cleary did last year, whereas the Sharks have the Knights. They'll dust them up. So the Sharks have got to win next week. Cowboys have probably got to win next week. We expect the Sharks dust up the Bulldogs this week. It all comes down to this game for the Cowboys of whether they're second or whether they just drop down. Or whether they just drop down the list a little bit. Absolutely enthralling game. I'm with the Cowboys here. I just think they have a big point to prove of what's unfolded over the last couple of weeks. Dearden's a key out. I actually like Drinkwater going to 6. Their record at Homebush is very good. Their record against the Rabbits is very good. They came to Sydney 2 weeks ago against the Roosters. They got the Roosters on the up. The Roosters absolutely gave it to them, walked through the middle. But it was a really tough couple of days for the Cowboys, only 3 days after the sad passing of Paul Green. They go home, absolutely whacked the Warriors last week. I'm just with them. I think they've got a major point to prove. A little bit disappointed in the Rabbitohs last week. They could have won that game 4 or 5 times over against the Panthers. They kept looking for Walker or Latrell just to get it done. Spoiled some stuff down the right edge. Still a little bit loose in attack. I like the upset here. I'm with the Cowboys.
Yeah, okay, Jared. I know you've moved in the new house. It sounded like the ocean-facing balcony just fell off. You all right?
No, I'm all good, mate. That was the darling wife just asking how many boxes of wine to bring home.
7 is the correct answer, I think.
Seven's a lucky number, Jimmy.
Well, there you go. Outside of the Titans and the Knights, this I thought was the toughest game to pick for me over the course of the weekend. I was really impressed and wasn't with the Rabbitohs last week. I don't know whether if that sort of makes sense. They played really well against the Panthers and then somehow didn't get it done. They created so many opportunities. And it's not just the ones that were let go by Jackson Paulo. You know, there were so many others. And Latrell, when he puts his mind to it, you know, he's throwing long passes, long pass, and then he just goes short pass for Cody Walker and he strides through. I think they're strengthened with Thomas Burgess coming back into the side. But you talk about that Roosters game. I can't get out of my head that when we're in the stand calling the game at Net Strata when the Cowboys absolutely flogged the Dragons. And I know this is a different proposition, the Rabbitohs to the Dragons, but that was a Sydney game and they played really well. And in fact, just blew them away in the second half. And, you know, that Jeremiah Nanai was exceptional that day, this young talent. So the question mark around that is, does the young talent who's now had they've had Origin this year and do they start getting tired and fatigued as well, or do they take energy out of that, a winning state of Origin? as I said, I think it's the toughest one of the week to pick. I'm going to go with the Rabbitohs to win the game, and I'm talking about at the line. I'll go the -6.5, the Rabbits. Would much prefer the -5.5. I don't know whether that's available or not. But anyway, the -6.5, and Latrell on the back of a game last week where I think he did so much good stuff, but he put other people under pressure. I don't think we're going to see that this week.
Hang on, Jimmy. You're saying you'll go the -6.5.
Yeah, well,
you don't have 5.5 available. All you got to do is look up the TopSport website.
Yeah. No, I just thought there might be a thing that Tristan and I could work out, but
so you're on the Rabbits -6.5, are you?
Yes.
I'm on the Cowboys +6.5. Would we like to call that a lunch bet?
Oh, loud and clear.
Beautiful.
Loud and clear. Okay.
Beautiful.
Finally. A bit of burley in the water and away you go. Eh?
Why don't you ask Jared for 5.5, Jimmy?
Jared?
He would not be a very public, polite answer.
All right. So we're on the lunch bet, you and I?
We are.
Okay.
We are.
Rabbits -6.5. Go, Latrell.
And I hope there's 2 more games to come.
Get the Ferrari out. All right. Let's have a look at that next game. Oh, dear, Tigers fans. Up against the Dragons. So Luke Garner, Ken Marmalore, James Tarmo, Alex Seafarth, all out. Junior Palgar comes in on the wing. Tommy Freeburn start in the second row. Joe Offahengawe from lock to prop. Manu Brown goes to lock. Poor old Noddy. Who's available? Everyone? Right, I put your hand up if you are available. Jake Simpkin, the new hooker. Jacob Little and Kotoni Kautonga are the new. And by the way, he's on debut, so we wish Kitione all the best for that game. For the Dragons, Jack Bird back to lock. Well, he played in the centres anyway, so he played well. Moses Mbai out. Jack DeBell into 13. Aaron Woods in starting at prop. And, of course, no Francis Molo and no Andrew McCulloch. Interesting to see which way the market views this one, Tristan.
Yeah, as you say, poor old Tigers fans, and the market is suggesting it's going to be another tough old assignment for them. $3.10 the Tigers, $1.37 St George Illawarra. The line shifted from 6.5 out to 9.5 already. 54.5 the total points. It's gone upwards. Sunny Sunday Arvo game should be a bit of touch footy, you would imagine. I don't think there'll be a lot of defence going around. Probably the only motivation for the Tigers is, can they get off the bottom? Their for and against is a little bit worse than the Titans. It's a lot worse after the result last weekend. So they definitely need to win one or two of these games at the back end of the season to give themselves a chance. That's probably their only motivation. But have they got the troops? They just seem to be dropping like flies, unfortunately. So I see it being quite a tough arvo for the Tigers.
The Dragons are not hard to like. The Tigers, my goodness, they are just so difficult to even talk. Absolute basket case, Jimmy. I just got no idea that it ever could have got as bad as it has this year. It's just gone from bad to worse since Maguire was sacked and the absolute mess thereafter. I know they've had some really poor injuries. They put the white flag up weeks ago. Some of the noises of what's going on internally that's come out in the last 2 weeks is just embarrassing. If it absolutely was published, dear oh dear, there would be heads that would be rolled at an executive level. The Cowboys have showed a bit of, the Dragons have showed a bit of spark in these last 2 weeks. I actually like what Bird did last week, what Ramsey did, what Amoni did at 6, and it just proves that if you give Amoni and some of these kids a little bit of game time, how much they improve as the season goes on. If they're playing with a little bit of spunk like they're showing in the last couple of weeks, they absolutely whacked the Tigers here. I thought 7.5 early was way too low. It's now 8.5. It'll probably start close to 10. The Dragons are half serious. It's out of ground. I mean, the Tigers, again, don't know where their home ground is. They're playing at Combank Stadium this week. Well, that's absolutely not a threat to the Dragons. They should win. I think they win by 10 or more, and there could be 20. Absolutely put another embarrassing sword through the Tigers.
Okay, sorry, you're offering me -8.5 because Tristan's got up -9.5. So I just want to be clear on that, Jared. Are you going to offer that to me? Is that your olive branch that you're extending to me?
You'd like to take the plus 9.5, would you, Jimmy?
No. But I'm interested in the -8.5. I like the -9.5 for most of the reasons that you've just explained. So
You just got me excited. I thought I was in again.
No. I thought you'd offer me a point there, but no, it's not there. Yeah, the Dragons, they showed a bit of fight, didn't they? I thought Lomax was good again. I totally agree with you around Bird. I thought the best game we've seen Bird play for a long time. Jaden Sullivan at 9 looked impressive. We've talked about Cody Ramsey and that, but they're going to have bad games. Like this is your patience, and this is where the ideas of the club may not align with the short-term prospects of the coach, right? Where the coach goes, God, I need a win. And you go, well, hang on, what's it look like in 18 months' time and 2 years' time? And that's where the clubs get caught up in that. What it looks like in 2 years' time for the West Tigers, who would know? But because, as you say, Jared, some of the things you hear coming out of Tiger Town at the moment, they're all over the place. They've got an unrecognisable interchange. Jock Madden and Adam Dewey, that's, the absence of Hastings has never been felt more with that game. It's just such a disappointment. -9.5 for the Dragons for me. All right, let's go. Final game. Dear, oh dear. Top Sport Titans. This will be a home game. You'll be there, Tristan?
We'll be there.
Yeah,
I will be
right there. Okay. So Phil Sammy is named. He's got to go through the concussion protocols. Jamin Jolliffe into the starting side. Cleese Haas joins the bench. He's making an NRL debut. Jared Wallace, I thought he was 5'8" last week in the scrum, but anyway, he goes back to the reserves. For the Knights, Tyson Frizzell and Daniel Saifidi are back on deck. Matt Croker, Jacob Saifidi back to the bench. And Ari Tuala, he got on the bus. So there we go. Bradman Best out with a hamstring injury. So who knows what happens there, but this is a very tough one, Tristan.
I know one thing we're going to see, providing the weather is as good as what it is today, will be plenty of points in the match. And it's the highest totals of the round of the season, should I say, at 55.5. 53.5 it opened up with us, and that was at 49.5 at other places at the same time. And it's moved out to 55.5. Very big go, and I can understand why. $1.45 the Titans, $2.75 the Knights, 6.5 the line. Now, if the Knights play like they did last week, or in the first half of last week, if they play like they did when they took on the Titans about 6 or 8 weeks ago, then there's no way in the world they should be 6.5 point underdogs. But did they lift at home, and are they going to go back to what they've been the last few weeks when they get away? The Titans, if they can play like they played at home against the Seagulls, then you like to see them put on another win for their home crowd and all the people up there in the Top Sport Lounge. But it's just a tricky game. I think it's a 13+ game one way or the other. I just get the feeling one side's going to get on top of the other, blow the other away, and it'll just be who jumps out that lead early, I feel.
Jimmy, my grandfather used to tell me that there were 2 really good rules in life to live by. One was that nothing good happens after 1 a.m. and the other was nothing good happens for teams that visit the Gold Coast at the end of the season. And I think we've got number 2 here for the Knights. I mean, they put in last week. There was a bit of effort. They actually should have gone on and won that game when they led by 14, but they compounded late, which again tells us what they're not capable of doing, and that is putting a game away. They're now on the glitter strip. They'll probably arrive there Friday, have a training run Saturday. The boys will just be looking around going, how good's this? Well, we've got nothing to play for. And then we've got both teams turning up. It'll be a dry Sunday afternoon, a 4 o'clock game. There will be points galore in this. It's gone from 50 to 51 to 54 to 55.5 total points. I think the Titans win. It'll be a game of touch football. I think the Knights are just turning up to make the numbers. I'm with the Titans, but gee, there is points galore to finish this game. And I think the Knights are there just to round off their preparation for Mad Monday.
Well, you know, the great Jack Gibson used to say, nothing good happens after midnight. So your grandfather gives you an extra hour's grace to get out on the rant. I like that. I like
He did.
that.
He did.
So the -6.5, I'm all over that for the Titans. I'll tell you what, I don't think your market's up yet, Tristan. So I'm just having a look at it. Edric Lee, anytime try scorer. So to score a try, I've got him 2+. I've got him 2+ in this one, and I don't think they'll get to the line of -6.5. So that tells you about the points on offer there. Yeah, the Titans were okay against the Dragons. They played well in patches, and then they did some absolutely ridiculously stupid things. So that sort of sums up the season of the Titans. But the Knights, as you say, away from home, glitter strip. You know, what is the latest nightclub? I know Melba's was the nightclub du jour there for about 2 decades. What is the nightclub up there, Tristan?
Yeah, Melba's is still, it's probably not firing on all cylinders like it used to be, but out there at Seabus, I have a feeling the boys might go from Seabus, have a few beverages at the Sporting Globe, and then maybe shoot over to whatever they call East. It's Pink Flamingo or something. That's in the Broady precinct. That might be the tour, I suspect. So yes.
Just on that, are we anticipating seeing Kalen Ponga go to the Gold Coast?
No, he's probably got another property deal to do, mate.
No, I'm serious. If I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, I wonder if he's here. I wonder if he's turning up.
The guy might be doing a Jackson Hastings and paying for his own ticket to fly up.
Exactly.
100 to 1. The guy couldn't spell leadership.
All right. So I think we all agree on that one.
Jimmy, just on Edric Lee, I have to say, and Nathan Brown said this about him 4 or 5 years ago, the guy has more talent in his little finger than most guys that have played first grade. And if only at that time, Nathan said, he actually understood and believed in his ability. And I think he's shown that in the last 3 years. He's had a year off because of that leg injury, come back and brain him again. He goes to the Dolphin next year. Under a coach like Wayne Bennett, I can just see him being an absolute standout next year. One of the tries he scored last week, there's probably only 1 or 2 guys in the competition that could do that. He is a freak. He could have actually been a national basketball player for Australia. He's just got so much talent. It's lovely to see him back, and I think he'll be a superstar at the Dolphins.
He's only 29 too. Seems to be forever, but only 29 years of age. All right, Gerard, you better go through your tips for the round and your best bet.
Jimmy, I'm with the Eels, the Panthers, the Roosters, the Raiders, the Sharks. Jimmy, can you write this down? I'm with the Cowboys, then the Dragons and the Titans. Listen, a number of market moves.
You think the Cowboys are going to win head-to-head?
I do.
Okay.
And you gave me 6.5 star.
Yeah. Well, that's what Tristan said.
Listen, a number of market moves have moved very quickly. I'm with the Storm and the Roosters over 42.5. I just thought that game will see points. Amy Park sees points. Those two teams score points. 42.5. Over that at $1.90 was my best.
Tristan, you got a best for us?
I'm just thinking it's going to be a bloodbath for some of these teams that are out of contention here. So I'm going to go a treble. The Panthers minus into the a double shot. So the Panthers minus into the Sharks minus -29.5 into the Sharkies minus 22.5 at $3.40.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go Penrith scoring a lot of points. So anytime try scorer, I'm going to go Taylor May, $1.48, into Isaac Tungo at $1.83, into Stephen Crichton at $1.90 for $5.14. For that one.
Did you want a staking plan with that, mate? Or?
No, you know what, Gerard? I'm just going to go all out on that one. So there, stand by for the staking plan. Gerard, do you want to have another lunch bet on the overs and unders of that game that you've got as your best bet?
Which, absolutely I do. Yeah, the Storm Roosters.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Jimmy, would you like to double the lunch bet on that game?
2 lunches.
2 lunches on the Storm Roosters under or over.
Of course I would. You know, you don't throw that out.
Okay.
You would accept the challenge. So
all right. So
So Storm Roosters under 47.5.
42.5. We've got a double on that, and we've got the Rabbits and the Cows.
Okay. So that's 2 times lunch. Wow. Okay. There we go. Happy to oppose you on that one. I think a more defence-oriented match.
Did you happen to pick up an air of confidence there, Jimmy?
From you or me?
From both of us.
Yeah, mine's genuinely misplaced, I think. Anyway, wouldn't be the first time in my life.
Jimmy, I'm going to pull that lead back from you, I'm telling you.
All right, here we go. Just to let you know, I'm unavailable Friday night if you do win. If you lose, watch out, okay? Your phone will be lighting up like a Christmas tree.
I did happen to notice all weekend how many gifts were coming through, and obviously your phone connection was working.
No, very strong out at Cawdor, so very excited by that.
Actually, the last gift on Sunday afternoon, I must give you 10 out of 10. That was a cracker.
That was skipping. That was me skipping through the field. All right, now, apparently there's racing over the course of the weekend as well. What do you got for us, Jared?
Jimmy, let's go to Randwick, race 2. There's a horse here owned by Mr. John Singleton called Air to Air, trained by young Sam Kavanagh, who's really on the way up. He's going to be a very smart trainer on his return. This horse had to be 3 lengths last at Newcastle last start. Absolutely picked him up and gave him a cold running home to win very comfortably. $10 early markets. I think it gives this race a big shake on Saturday. Nash Rawiller to win. So let's go Randwick, race 2, number 6, Air to Air. Jimmy, I just want to keep, for the bookkeeper's sake, the staking plan nice and easy. Let's just go 100 to win.
What price is it?
$10.
Okay.
Jimmy.
Wow.
Very brave.
That's a great collect. Now, can I just make special mention of last week's 1A that opened up at about $15 and $4.40, ended up jumping at $6.50 and $2.30, ran 4th. Just want to put that out there. This week, better value again. Okay, so we're going to go to race 4 at Rosehill, number 13, Loving Silla. Presently quoted at $31 at topsport.com.au and $6.50. Has trialled well twice, despite generally racing over longer distances. This horse is set to do something fresh. Generally, the midway races are run at a genuine tempo and hoping Silla can run on late at big odds. So the all-important staking plan here, Tristan, $25.75.
$25.75. It's won 90% of the time, 100% of the time, that one. So that's a really good staking plan there. So no, we've got a couple of roughies. Wow, there'll be a bit of a kick into the kitty if either of those can lob. And I just wanted to point to a horse on Friday for others to have a look at. The Gold Coast show up here. We've got a public holiday on the Gold Coast. And a little horse we've spoken about a couple of times on this pod is going around in the Gold Coast Cup. That's race 6, number 2, Cedar Power. Run 2 very nice seconds over the last 2 starts. I think the Gold Coast track will very much suit it. Going to go out for a spell here. It's going well. They're just going to try to finish off the prep with a nice little win at the Gold Coast Cup. It's around about the $5 mark. So I think it's going to run a big race.
And a very, very interesting jock change too.
Jimmy Orman, yes.
Oh, no comment from the part owner. Oh, wasn't that the story about the previous jockey who had a very interesting explanation? What transpired?
Well, Jimmy Orman's in the top 2 or top 3 in the Brisbane Premiership, and all of a sudden jumps on here. I'd suggest that might be a nice lead for those listening to the podcast.
Ooh, we love that. We love that. Sack the other bloke. Get the top seeds on, and away we go. Will you be there? Will you be trackside, Tristan, on the public holiday?
We're currently in negotiations. So
Mrs. Tristan or
no, Mrs. Tristan and baby Merlehans are all attending. So is Daddy Merlehan, my grandpa and grandma. I've been the last 3 races I've been on course for. The horse horses have finished third last, last, and second last. So I'm desperate to get out there, but everyone else is booking appointments left, right, and centre for me on Friday afternoon to try to keep me away from the races. So I might pop a little tweet out because the odds have to firm up if I can't make it there. And if I happen to be able to get away from a couple of these appointments, then certainly there's going to be a drift late.
Tristan, do you have a lunch bet riding on this week?
I do not. It sounds like there could be a...
Mate, what's going on?
No, well, Mrs. Merlehan, she did tie it and she told me I've got to be very selective here. But what we said at the start, Jared and I are a team, remember? We combine our scores. So I'm definitely on the same side as Jared this weekend, unofficially.
And of course, if you lose, Jared, I'll lemonade sandwich Merlehan. Want nothing to do with you, right?
Jimmy, we're all a team here. We're all a team.
Yeah, exactly. I just wish I was on it. That's it.
I was about to say we're all a team playing against Jimmy Smith.
Oh, we love it. Good fun, boys. Can't wait for this weekend of footy and the racing as well. Enjoy it. Oh, yes, Jared?
Oh, Jimmy, I just can't wait for that lunch. How good is that? We've got special guests turning up that we've not made public, very well-known rugby league identities. We've got some amazing auction items been sold out for a number of weeks. The amount of feedback I've had has just been fantastic. Be a super day. If we don't raise on top of what we already had, which is 12 grand, if we don't tip the $20,000 mark as a lovely donation to Pass On Clothing, I'll give up. And it just sets the scene for a fantastic day for a great cause.
Well, we can lose every bet that we've got, and there's still 150 going in because of the 3 lunch bets. So there we go. All right, boys, enjoy the weekend.
Take care, gentlemen.